So it was a terrific week and weekend of racing at Belmont at Saratoga. The first Belmont at Saratoga was a smashing success. We're going to do something a little different in a little bit. John's going to interview me because I was up there, and obviously I was the center of attention all week at Saratoga. Nobody was focusing on anything else. So the people want to know, what did Joe Bianca think of Belmont at Saratoga? So we'll get into that and talk a little bit more about the experiential side of Belmont at Saratoga. But let's talk about the racing first, because it was terrific. There was one awesome performance after another. I honestly don't even really know where to begin, but I guess we'll begin with the Belmont itself. It was a really exciting race. Shout out to Dornoch, who won at 17-1 in the Belmont, and shout out to Arian Pedigrees, as we'll throw up the pedigree page here for Dornoch, who's obviously a full brother to Mage. So not bad for Good Magic and Puka to produce the Kentucky Derby winner in 2023 and the Belmont winner in 2024. My guess is she's going to be going back to Good Magic a time or two in the future. It was a really exciting race, and it was made more exciting and more intriguing by Mindframe, who looked like he was going to run down Dornoch, drifting out in mid-stretch under Irad Ortiz, and then diving back towards the inside and almost running him down, but not quite being able to do it. Danny Gargan was very, very high on Dornoch from the jump, and he had a little bit of a disappointing year, I felt like, so far. Even though he won the Fountain of Youth, it wasn't very impressive. He didn't run well in the Bluegrass or the Derby, but so this was a real redemption arc for him. Jason Worth had some great footage of him reacting to the win in the Saratoga boxes, and he's a real deal, horse guy. Like, I see him at the sales. Like, he's not a Johnny come lately. He's really into this, so that was cool to see him win. And I think that this is. It's so interesting because I had people, West Point partners, asking me like who I like before the race, and one of them like Mindframe, and I said, you just got to be careful with these horses that are lightly raced. He only had two races coming in. He obviously was very impressive both times, but experience counts for something. And maybe I'm wrong, but I think if he had run 7 or 8 times, he would not have done that in the stretch and gotten spooked by whatever it was, the crowd, the whip, whatever, and he would have won that race. He's obviously got a bright future, but that just added to the intrigue and the fascinating nature of this race. John, what was your takeaway from the Belmont?
Well, I think you hit on a couple of key points, Joe. Number one is that that race in particular, Belmont, was chock full of good horses. We talked about the Acorn in the last show. We talked about a couple other races, and we were, I think, a little neglect in not mentioning just the powerful entries in the Belmont. Really from top to bottom. There was, maybe 1 or 2 horses in there where you kind of scratched your head, but for the most part, you look top to bottom, and like the Wine Steward was one of the long shots, and he had never been worse than second in his career. Honor Marie was one of the long shots, and like going into the Derby, I think you and I both picked him as one of our top 4 or 5 horses in the Derby. So it was a really strong group. It also reminded me of, like, there were over 50,000 fans that were there. And I know if you tried to get from point A to point B, you had to kind of meander your way through all the crowds. And that's exactly what it looked like Sierra Leone and Mindframe was doing. They were not going on straight lines. They were going like a roundabout ways, in order to get to the finish line first. And I think you hit it on the head with Mindframe. And that is, he's a very, very talented horse. And if he had a couple more races under his belt, especially a close race where, maybe he had to be hit once or twice down the stretch. I really believe that was like the first time that leather hit that horse's skin in his racing career. And he spooked from it. He definitely spooked from it. He when Irad was hitting him left-handed, he went out to the outside fence. When he hit him right-handed, he started to work his way back towards the inside. And as silly as it sounds, that's one of the problems with having such a talented horse, is that, when in the maiden race, when he was even money and he won by double digits, nobody got close to him. Irad never even showed him the whip. When he won the allowance race by 7, from gate to wire, same thing. He probably doesn't even know what it felt, what a whip would feel like at that point. But coming down the stretch, it looked like he was a winner. And he took, kind of a couple of inconsistent steps when he was, going back and forth. And I think he probably should have won the race. That being said, Dornoch fulfilled his destiny and got the Grade 1 and got one of the Triple Crown wins under his belt. And really, Joe, you look at the 3rd and 4th place horses with Sierra Leone and Honor Marie and the class of this field. It was a tough tough race. It was a legit, silly as it sounds, it was a legitimate Grade 1, a legitimate Belmont, because God knows we've seen some of them where you go, why are they even running this race? It's not, there's no interest and no excitement. But Joe, I saw a stat that I thought was very interesting, and this is the 6th straight year that there has been a different winner in the Derby, Preakness, and Belmont. 6th straight year. So we have not had a horse win more than one Triple Crown race in the past 6 years. To me, that says a lot of things. You can either say, well, that shows the depth of field of the 3-year-olds every year, or it shows that, like, maybe these distances are too far. We're asking them to do too much. I don't know. You can take a lot out of it, but I thought that for sure this was a very hard fought win for Dornoch, and it was great for the industry because, as you said, Jason Worth was legitimately over the moon excited and expressed his enthusiasm basically to anybody who would listen. And God knows we need that in this industry.
Yeah, well, and to have those crossover, I mean, he doesn't play baseball anymore, but he's pretty well known in other sports. Just to have that crossover attention from a guy from another sport being so into racing might get a couple of people to say, hey, why is this guy who I know from this other thing so excited and so into this? Right. So I think that's always a good thing. A couple other notes. Sierra Leone ran a great race, but again, this is why I never take horses like him at short prices. He just needs too much to happen for him. He doesn't get out of the gate well, and he ran terrific. He was flying late, but and maybe he wins if they're going a mile and a half instead of a mile and a quarter. But I just never trust these deep closers at short prices, and he's disappointed more often than not in terms of getting the job done. The other thing is, it was just a fabulous Triple Crown season. And, as you're mentioning, a lot of times in the past, if there wasn't a Triple Crown on the line, it's like, snooze, why we even pay attention? I did not feel that way this season. I thought all 3 races were great. They had great storylines. Obviously, you had Mystic Dan in the thrilling Kentucky Derby. You had Seize the Grave for Dwayne Lucas winning the Preakness. And then you had a Belmont field with another really exciting finish. And everybody showed up. Mystic Dan was there. Seize the Gray was there. You had a bunch of new shooters. You had Sierra Leone, who was favorite in the Derby. And there was no lack of intrigue or star power, I think, in any of these races. And most importantly, everybody came back safe. We had 3 outstanding weeks of racing, and every horse came back to their barn safely, and there were no catastrophic injuries. And that, it's obviously, I've said this before, it's not the kind of thing that on its face, it's not the kind of thing that we should be celebrating. But with the turmoil that this industry has gone through in recent years, with the breakdowns and last year at Churchill Downs, I do think it's something to be celebrated and something to be proud of, that we had hundreds of horses, if not over 1,000 horses competing in these races at these huge racetracks, and everything was okay. The racetrack safety was top notch. There were no drug positives, at least as far as we know. So this is something to build on for the future.
Did they get your blood? Did they get your blood and urine test back yet, John?
No comment.
It was just sitting there. But the other thing is, you mentioned all the horses that went into the gate and came home safely. I think that's a direct result of the fact that, a couple people on the show, I won't name names, are on HISA advisory boards. And I think that that was a direct result of their influence in it.
John never hesitant to pat us on the back for things that are way above our head and above our pay grade. But no, I honestly, it's just, there were so many positive headlines and no negative headlines from this Triple Crown season, and we need that. And it was, like I said, usually no Triple Crown on the line, who cares? But not this year. There was so much intrigue from all 3 races. Let's talk a little bit about the other races, because it was a phenomenal weekend. Tons of grade 1s. Torpedo Anna is the headliner of the non-Belmont races, I think. And she is just so clearly the best 3-year-old filly in the country. And I think that if Mystic Dan were not in the Belmont, Kenny McPeek would have run her in the Belmont Stakes, and I think she would have been competitive. And she's just one of these horses who shows up every single time, no matter what the pace scenario is. She can go to the front, she can sit off the lead, and she crushed that field. We talked about before the race what a stacked field that was in Acorn, and she toyed with them. Yeah. And she is just she's awesome. She does everything you could possibly ask of a horse. $40,000 FASIG grad, and she's just been nails, and she's gonna take some catching for a 3-year-old filly champion, because now with the Kentucky Oaks and the Acorn in her pocket, she's just head and shoulders above this class of 3-year-old fillies. And I would like to see her go against the boys. I know people think that, that's she shouldn't. It's like sexist against horses. Against female horses, like they shouldn't have to run against the boys to prove their mettle, and she doesn't. She's awesome no matter what. But I do like to see trainers and horses step outside of their comfort zone and do something out of the ordinary. And I think Kenny McPeak will do that, maybe in the Travers. The other horse, and John was plenty to get to, so we can keep going on this. But the other horse I want to mention before I toss it back to you is Cogburn, because I thought that was a misprint. Did I steal your thunder?
Yeah, you did.
Sorry, bud. Sorry about that. That's why I lead. That's why I lead, man. you gotta reel me in sometimes. But no, I thought that was I won't go too far with it, but I thought that was a typo when I looked at the time. 59-4 for 5.5 furlongs. I was like, no way that can be right. But then I looked at the rest of the fractions and I was like, holy shit, this horse did run under a minute for 5.5 furlongs. He's the best turf sprinter in America. He's probably the best turf sprinter I've seen since God knows what. I can't even think of another one that really got me going like that. 59-4 for 5.5 furlongs. And that turf course had taken some rain. Like obviously it didn't play soft, but it had taken some rain over the past couple of days. Man, was he impressive. And show me another turf sprinter in the world. I'm sure our buddy Andrew Stewart from Arion will give me like an Aussie or a New Zealand turf sprinter that he loves. But to me, I'll take him against any turf sprinter in the entire world right now. Go ahead, John.
New course record, Joe. I mean, you mentioned sub 1 minute for 5.5 furlongs. And a new course record.
It's a new North American record. It's a North American record.
Yep. I mean that's even more mind blowing. And ever since they switched, I mean, he was a good sprinter, and then they switched him over to turf, and he's got 5 wins and 6 starts now on the turf. And the one race he didn't win, he lost by 3/4 of a length. So it's like ever since they moved him to the grass, he just took the next step up. And it seems like the firmer the better for him as far as the course goes. 111 buyer, 111 for a turf sprinter. Again, really impressive. And that was a great race, a great betting race, especially. You had the not this time exacta with Cogburn and Arzak. You had oh, by the way, Charlie Appleby actually brought a horse in and didn't win, which makes news. With the Philly Star of Mystery, who ran third in that race, and Coppola, I thought ran a credible race also, but it was just a really good, solid field, and Cogburn just put them all in their rearview mirror.
Yeah, he was incredible. A couple other performances I want to mention. I mean, it was just one great race after another. Idiomatic and randomized in the Ogden Phipps. I mean, I needed Idiomatic so badly, and she was so much the best in that race. Like, she broke slowly, was wide around both turns. Randomized got to, just cruise along on the lead. I honestly thought Florent Geroux should have gone to the front. Like, I understand, like, when you break a little slowly, you don't want to use too much energy and put the horse on the lead. But I thought he let Randomized get away from him a little bit and get away with those soft fractions. And still, she dug in and just lost the head bob. She's terrific. She's, again, another one of those horses who, she can make the lead, but she can run any kind of style. She's clearly the best fillier mare in the country. I don't care what the result was on Saturday. How about the Belmont Gold Cup? 2-mile race, and the Gray Wizard for Graham Motion gets up in the last jump. Imagine getting nailed in the last jump of a 2-mile race. Yeah, like that's a tough one to stomach. But yeah, it was just one. Bookham Dano in the not the Alan Jerkins, the Woody Stevens. Yeah. He's probably. Yeah, I mean, he's awesome, and that was a little bit of redemption after he got nailed in the Saudi race. I mean, we could just go on and on. These are the weekends, these are the weeks that, remind us why we love racing, and especially the buzz, and we'll get to it in a minute, but the buzz on the grounds at Saratoga was just so much greater than it would have been at Belmont. And it was just every single race seemed not to disappoint, and we loved every minute of it.
And again, you took a little bit of thunder from me because there were so many great races.
You had your chance.
Those were
that time you stopped.
I know.
You stopped after Cogburn.
I'm blaming you.
Kept going.
It just goes to show, great minds think alike. We landed on pretty much the same races. Randomized, I thought, was interesting because from the one hole, Jose Rosario had to go. He had to send her at that point. And I think Florent Geroux's thought on Idiomatic was, I'm on the best horse in the race. I just want to keep her clear. And if I can stalk randomize, that's just as good as that's even better than me going head to head and trying to put her away where we both might get buried at that point. But it was a little bit of a surprise for me to see randomize hold on and go gate the wire the way she did. Again, a 99 buyer, which is a career best for her. But Idiomatic is such a pleasure to watch run. I mean, she's just really fun because we're on bonus time with her. If anybody else other than Juddmonte owned that filly, she'd be in the breeding shed right now. She'd be a mommy. She wouldn't be racing still. So it was like a gift that they gave to thoroughbred racing by having her come back and run again as a 5-year-old. So that's that group. Bookham Dano, again, Joe, I'm more of a pedigree snob, and I would look at a Bucero and say, oh, well, what does this horse have to do with running against some of the best of the best? He doesn't know that he's not a gun runner or he's not an into mischief. All he does is win, and all he does is win races under a mile. And I think, as a fellow Jersey bred, I appreciate the fact that he's running against the royally bred and the blue bloods and just leaving them all in the rearview mirror. Derek Ryan, I've known since he was an exercise rider, at Monmouth Park. And, I think he will tell you that he was almost done training. He was almost at the end of his rope as far as wanting to train anymore. And then he got Bookham Dano, and all of a sudden his career has been rejuvenated. One of the co-breeders, again, talk about old-timers in the business, one of the co-breeders was Brightview Farm. Brightview Farm, Christine Connolly was one of the first people I ever met in racing, umpteen years ago. I'm not going to say how long ago because Christine's going to beat me up if I say how long our relationship goes by. But she was very influential in my early days of racing and kind of sat me down and taught me some things about the breeding industry and racing. And I was really pleased to see that one of her homebreds is just picking off horses and now has a grade one. I think Christine's bred grade one winners before, but I know this is the most recent one. And obviously it's Bucero's first grade one winner. And there's a horse that's on the move now, Joe, where he went from Florida and now he's in New York. And, if he keeps getting some runners, he may end up, right back in the bluegrass state, with some of the bigwigs. But that was an interesting race, especially because I think a lot of people were expecting, the Nash to come back and win that race. And Prince of Monaco, who I thought ran a credible race coming off a layoff since the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Again, a tough race, a legitimate grade one race. And it was good to see a Jaybird win the race. We didn't mention the Hillendale Met Mile yet, and what National Treasure did in that group, and the way he buried that field, coming off his fourth place finish in the Saudi Cup. I think it's worth mentioning, that now that horse has over, I think it's like $5.5 million of purse earnings in 13 starts. So. Tip of the cap to National Treasure and the fact that he won another grade one race, representing California over in New York. And then you've been very, very, very good and about not mentioning this because I would have started off with this because I'm an egomaniac. But Ohana Honor ran a huge race, I thought, in the Manhattan, in a very stacked Manhattan, and going a mile and 3/16 for the first time, and dead heated and finished third in a race that was just Euro rich. Between Nation's Pride, who ran second in the race, and of course Measured Time, who basically you don't see too many Euros go right to the front and try to steal a race from there. But that's what that's what Measured Time did, and Buick took him right from the gate and said, you're going to be up close, and it's not too unusual the way his racing style is. But that being said, it's unusual for a Euro to be showing that. But I was very impressed with Ohana Honor coming in, and he was like 20-1, and he ran third in a grade one. So he really upset the apple cart for a lot of bettors. But more importantly, he showed that he can run with those kind of horses.
Well, and I appreciate you mentioning that this is his second consecutive race that he ran with those horses. He beat Nation's Pride last time in the Man of War. So he can, it's frustrating sometimes because, we got a couple horses in the barn that I feel like turf horses that can compete with every single American turf horse. And then Charlie Appleby sends a different monster every time to win.
Yep.
But we were so proud of him, and like the way he had to run too, because he got stopped a little bit behind the retreating speed on the turn. He had to dive through at the inside. Would have been very easy for him to say, whatever, I'm not doing this today. But he put his head down and got up for the dead heat for third. And I think a couple more strides, he would have been second. And he's gotten better and better and better for Shug. He got a 100 buyer. So we like him as a potential Breeders' Cup turf horse later in the year. So thanks for mentioning that. And that's why I love West Point. Like, we were watching on the big screens by the Jim Dandy bar, and it took forever for them to put up who was third, because it was a dead heat. And the photo, like even now looking at the photo, I'm like, they just guessed. They have no freaking clue.
They had no direct
third, They
had no direct vantage point of that, which is why I think it took such a long time for them to be like, do we flip a coin? Do we just go ahead and just say they're both winners?
Just like, when in doubt, call it a dead heat. But when they did put that up, you never seen so many people so excited to be put up for third. Like, that's why I love the West Point partners, because that was a big deal for us and for him to be grade 1 placed, and we exploded as if we had won the race. So yeah, shout out to Ohana. And I'm with you on National Treasure. I thought he was a little bit of a phony Preakness winner last year, one of the worst Preaknesses I've ever seen, but he's proven his mettle since then. He was great when he almost beat Cody's Wish in the dirt mile last year. He obviously won the Pegasus earlier this year, and he blew everybody away in the Met Mile, took all the heat up front, kicked away. So he's definitely a legit horse. And then one other horse I wanted to mention, it wasn't a stake, I believe it was an allowance race. Arthur's Ride, early in the day on Thursday, crushed him from Belmont. He got a 111 buyer, and in a handicap division that's kind of crying out for stars, he might be one to look for in the second half of the season. But yeah, like I said, we could go on and on and on. It was just an awesome week of racing, and we're so blessed to have these opportunities, to have these horses strut their stuff on the big stage, and again, all come back safely and have the headlines be entirely positive. It was a terrific week.
I just wanted to mention, we talk all the time about sire power and the importance of stallions in a pedigree. And certainly during the course of the weekend, the old guard, Good Magic, Frankel, Quality Road, Not This Time, Curlin, Nyquist had 2 winners, Into Mischief. They all had winners representing their respective stallions. But also you had a Buchero, Prospective, Orpin, Fast Anna, Caravaggio, and Lord Nelson win, equally good races, grade 1s, grade 2s during the course of that weekend also. And it just goes to show that it's not just the top stallions that are winning. I mean, they get the headlines because they're the most, they have the most notoriety and the highest stud fees. But you can find a good horse from a lot of different places if you just kick over enough rocks and you keep looking and you keep searching. So, again, I tend to be more of a stallion snob, and then you have weekends like this where you go, well, wait a second, all of these other representatives of these, not as household name stallions, through good winners and have representation in these graded stake races. It made me sit up and take notice.
Well, that reminds me, we got a filly available at West Point by Salamini. And Salamini had a big-time New York bred, New York Sired Stakes winner on Sunday, which was New York Bred's showcase day at Saratoga. But to your point, like, she's fast, and I think she's going to be really good. You don't have to be by Into Mischief or Tap It to get a good horse. And
you guys sold out on the Alternation, which, again, is another stallion that isn't even in the States anymore. But great athlete.
Like that.
Yep.
It's you need the individual. Obviously, you have a better chance with the high class stallions, but you're also paying a much bigger premium for them. There's good horses to be found everywhere. A great point, John. We saw that this weekend.